Emma Darnell's hands were still warm with her husband's blood when she heard the boots coming back. They'd beaten Wade to death in their own kitchen, demanding gold that didn't exist, and now they were hunting her through the darkness. Her lungs burned. Her dress caught on barbed wire. She didn't know where she was running, only that if she stopped, she'd die screaming just like Wade did. Before we continue, please subscribe to our channel and follow this story to the very end. Comment below with your city so I can see how far Emma's desperate journey has reached. Now, let's continue. The valley was drowning in twilight when Emma's legs finally gave out. She hit the ground hard, tasting dirt and copper. The wooden crate she'd been clutching flew from her grip and tumbled across the grass, stopping against a fence post. She didn't even remember grabbing it from Wade's workshop. Instinct, maybe, or madness. Behind her, somewhere in the darkness between the trees, she could hear them calling to each other. She came this way, can't have gone far, woman's half dead already. Emma pressed her face into the earth and tried not to sob. Her arms were shredded from the broken window she'd crashed through. Her right cheek throbbed where the big one, the one with the broken nose, had backhanded her across the kitchen. She could still see Wade's face, the way his eyes went dim while they kicked him, demanding answers he didn't have. "Where's the gold, old man? Where'd you hide it?" "There ain't no gold," Wade had gasped through broken teeth. "Never was," and they'd kept kicking. Emma forced herself onto her hands and knees. Her vision swam. Blood dripped from a gash above her eyebrow, warm and sticky. She reached for the crate, dragged it close. It was heavier than it looked, locked with a rusty padlock. "What were you hiding, Wade?" A light appeared through the trees. Then another. Lanterns. "Spread out. She's bleeding. Just follow the trail." Terror shot through Emma's chest, like electricity. She grabbed the crate and stumbled forward, half running, half falling toward the only structure she could see, a low ranch house with smoke rising from its chimney and a forge glowing orange beside the barn. Her foot caught on something. She went down again, this time slamming her shoulder against a water trough. The pain was instant and blinding. She gasped, couldn't breathe, couldn't think. The front door of the ranch house opened. A man stepped out, broad-shouldered and bearded, holding a lantern. He wore a stained work shirt and suspenders. His face was weathered, lined with scars and years. When he saw Emma collapsed by his trough, he froze for half a second. Then he was moving. "Ma'am." He set the lantern down and dropped to one knee beside her. "Ma'am, can you hear me?" Emma tried to speak. Only a rasp came out. "Easy now," the man said, his voice low and steady. He touched her shoulder gently, checking for breaks. "Who did this to you?" "They." Emma coughed, tasted blood. "They killed him, my husband. They killed Wade." The man's jaw tightened. His eyes swept the darkness beyond his property line, then returned to her face. "Who's they?" "3 men, looking for gold. They think—" Her voice broke. "They think we stole it, but there's no gold. There never was. Can you stand?" Emma shook her head. Everything hurt. Everything was spinning. "All right." The man slipped one arm beneath her shoulders, the other under her knees, and lifted her like she weighed nothing. "Let's get you inside." "The box," Emma whispered. "Don't leave the box." He glanced at the crate, then nodded. "I'll come back for it." He carried her across the threshold into a small, sparse front room. A fire crackled in the hearth. The furniture was simple, handmade from the look of it. He laid her on a worn sofa and grabbed a wool blanket from the back of a chair. "Name's Luke," he said, tucking the blanket around her. "Luke Ramsay. You're safe here." "They're coming," Emma gasped. "They followed me. They'll find me." "Not if I have anything to say about it." Luke moved to the window and peered through the curtain. His posture shifted, shoulders squaring, spine straightening. Emma recognized it. Wade had stood like that once years ago before the war took the fight out of him. This man still had fight in him. Luke turned back to her. "I need to clean those cuts before they fester. You gonna let me do that?" Emma nodded weakly. He disappeared into the back room and returned with a basin of water, clean rags, and a bottle of whiskey. He knelt beside the sofa and dampened a cloth. When he brought it toward her face, she flinched hard. "Easy," Luke said softly. "Easy now, I know it hurts. Please, it'll be over quick, I promise." He pressed the cloth to the gash on her forehead. Emma hissed through her teeth, gripping the edge of the blanket. "That's it," Luke murmured. "Breathe through it." His hands were steady, careful. He worked in silence, cleaning the blood from her face, then moving to her arms where the glass had torn through her sleeves. Every touch was deliberate, gentle. Emma found herself relaxing slightly, the initial panic ebbing into exhaustion. "You said 3 men," Luke said after a moment. "You remember what they looked like? One had a broken nose, crooked, like it had been smashed before." Luke's hands stilled. "Jack Bridger. You know him, know of him. Runs with a couple of lowlifes, Harlan Moss and Pete Talbot. They've been working this valley for months, robbing homesteads, running folks off their land." Luke's voice darkened. "They killed your husband, beat him to death in our kitchen, kept asking about gold. Wade tried to tell them there wasn't any, but they didn't believe him." Tears burned Emma's eyes. "Why would they think we had gold?" Luke soaked the rag again, wrung it out. "Somebody told them you did." "But who?" "We don't have enemies. We kept to ourselves. Doesn't take much. Rumor gets started in a saloon, spreads like wildfire. Next thing you know, men like Bridger are kicking down your door." He applied a dab of whiskey to a particularly deep cut on her forearm. Emma yelped. "Sorry," Luke said, "but it'll keep infection out." Emma bit down on her lip, nodded. Her gaze drifted to the window. "They're out there. I heard them shouting. They're tracking me." "Then we don't have much time." Luke stood and moved to the fireplace. He reached up above the mantel and pulled down a lever Emma hadn't noticed before. A section of the floor near the back wall shifted with a low grinding sound, a trapdoor cleverly hidden beneath a rug and floorboards. Emma stared. "What is that?" "Hider's hole," Luke said simply. "Built it during the war, saved my life twice." He walked to the door and retrieved the wooden crate she'd been carrying. He set it beside the trapdoor. "If they come, you're going down there. Understand, you can't fight 3 men alone. I've fought worse. They'll kill you." Luke looked at her then, and Emma saw something cold and final in his eyes. "They can try." A sound cut through the night, sharp and unmistakable. Gunfire. Luke moved to the window again. Through the gap in the curtain, Emma saw lights dancing in the distance, lanterns bobbing between the trees. "They're coming," Luke said quietly. He turned to her. "Get in the hole. Now." "Luke, now." Emma pushed herself off the sofa. Her legs shook, but she made it to the trapdoor. Luke helped her down into the darkness below, a narrow crawl space maybe 4 feet deep, lined with wooden beams and dirt. It smelled of earth and mildew. He handed her the crate. "Stay quiet," Luke said. "No matter what you hear up here, you stay quiet." "What are you going to do?" He smiled faintly. "Greet my guests." Then he lowered the trapdoor, and Emma was swallowed by darkness. Above, Luke took a long breath and rolled his shoulders. He hadn't felt this clarity in years, not since the war, when every moment was life or death and nothing else mattered. He walked to the corner of the room and pulled a rifle from the rack on the wall. A Henry repeater, 16 rounds. He checked the chamber, loaded. The voices were closer now. "Saw her come this way, I'm telling you. Then where the hell is she? Maybe she collapsed somewhere. Let's check that ranch house." Luke opened the front door and stepped out onto the porch. The night air was cool. A storm was rolling in from the west. Dark clouds churning overhead, lightning flickered in the distance. 3 men emerged from the tree line. The one in front was tall, wiry, with a flat-brimmed hat pulled low. The second was shorter, barrel-chested, with a scar running down his left cheek. And the third had a nose bent at an unnatural angle. Jack Bridger. They stopped when they saw Luke standing there, rifle in hand. "Evening, boys," Luke said calmly. Bridger squinted at him. "You live here." "I do." "You see a woman come through bleeding, carrying something?" "Nope." Bridger's eyes narrowed. "You sure about that?" "Pretty sure." The wiry one, Harlan, if Luke's memory served, spat into the dirt. "We tracked her right to your property, old man. Don't lie to us." "I'm not old," Luke said evenly. "And I'm not lying. Saw a coyote run past about an hour ago. Maybe that's what you tracked." Bridger stepped forward. "We know she's here. Hand her over and we'll leave you in peace." "And if I don't?" Bridger smiled. It was a cold, ugly thing. "Then we'll take her anyway and burn this place to the ground." Luke didn't move, didn't blink. "That's so." The third man, Pete Talbot, raised his shotgun. "You really want to die for some woman you don't even know?" "Don't know yet," Luke said. "Haven't made up my mind." For a long moment, nobody moved. Then Talbot made a mistake. He cocked the shotgun. Luke's rifle came up faster than thought, faster than breath muscle memory from 1,000 firefights, and the crack of the shot split the night like thunder. Talbot's head snapped back. He hit the ground and didn't move. Harlan swore and dove for cover behind the water trough. Bridger brought his pistol up, firing wild. Luke stepped sideways, cool as stone, levering another round into the chamber. He fired again. Harlan screamed and clutched his shoulder. "You son of a—" Bridger charged. Luke sidestepped, swung the rifle like a club, and caught Bridger across the jaw. Bone crunched. Bridger staggered, spitting blood. Luke chambered another round and pressed the barrel against Bridger's chest. "You killed that woman's husband," Luke said quietly. "Didn't you?" Bridger grinned through broken teeth. "Damn right I did." "Why?" "Gold." "What gold?" "The gold Wade Darnell dug up near Willow Creek. Everybody in town knows about it." Luke's eyes narrowed. "If everybody knows, why'd you have to beat it out of him?" "He wouldn't say where he hid it." Bridger laughed, wet and ragged. "Stubborn old bastard died without telling us." Behind the trough, Harlan groaned and tried to crawl away. Luke fired once. Harlan stopped moving. Bridger's grin faded. "You're making a mistake." "Probably," Luke agreed, "but I've made worse." He pulled the trigger. The gunshot echoed across the valley, fading into silence. Luke stood there for a moment, breathing hard, rifle still raised. Blood pounded in his ears. His hands didn't shake. They never did not anymore. He'd left that part of himself somewhere in Virginia, buried under mud and cannon smoke. Finally, he lowered the rifle and walked back to the house. Inside, he knelt by the trapdoor and knocked twice. "It's me. It's over." He lifted the door. Emma stared up at him, pale and wide-eyed, clutching the crate to her chest. "They're dead," Luke said simply. Emma didn't speak. She just climbed out, trembling, and sank onto the sofa. Luke set the rifle aside and poured her a glass of water from the pitcher on the table. She took it with shaking hands. "You killed them," she whispered. "Yes. All three, yes." Emma looked at him, really looked at him, and saw something in his face that made her heart ache. Weariness, regret, not for what he'd done, but for the fact that he'd had to do it at all. "Thank you," she said quietly. Luke nodded once. "Don't thank me yet." "Why not?" "Because killing them just made things worse." He walked to the window and stared out at the bodies lying in the dirt. "Bridger said everybody in town knows about the gold. If that's true, more will come." Emma's stomach twisted. "But there is no gold. Wade didn't he?" She looked down at the crate in her lap. The wood was old, stained dark. The padlock was heavy, military issue. She'd never seen it before tonight. "What's in the box, Emma?" "I don't know." Luke crossed the room and knelt in front of her. "Then maybe it's time we found out." He pulled a knife from his boot and wedged the blade under the padlock's hasp. One sharp twist metal groaned, then snapped. The lock clattered to the floor. Emma's hands hovered over the lid. "Go on," Luke said gently. She opened it. Inside, nestled in rotted cloth, were letters, dozens of them tied with string. Beneath the letters was a folded map, yellowed with age. and beneath the map, Emma gasped. A single gold coin. Luke picked it up, turned it over. It was old. Spanish, worth a small fortune on its own. He set it aside and unfolded the map. His eyes scanned the lines, the landmarks, the careful notations in faded ink. "Willow Creek," he murmured, "just like Bridger said." Emma's voice was barely a whisper. "Wade found gold. Looks like it. But why didn't he tell me? Why hide it?" Luke studied the map a moment longer, then looked up at her. "Maybe he was protecting you. Or maybe he was planning to surprise you." He folded the map and handed it back. Either way, Bridger was right. There's gold out there, and if he knew about it, others do too. Emma felt the walls closing in. "What do I do?" Luke stood and walked to the fireplace. He stared into the flames, thinking. Finally, he turned back to her. "You stay here tonight. Get some rest. In the morning, we'll ride out to Willow Creek and see what Wade left behind." You can't do this alone, Emma, not with men like Bridger's friends still out there." He met her eyes. "I'll help you, if you'll let me." Emma looked at him, this stranger who'd saved her life, killed 3 men without hesitation, and was now offering to risk everything again for someone he'd just met. "Why?" she asked. "Why would you do this?" Luke was quiet for a long time. When he finally spoke, his voice was low and distant. "Because a long time ago I didn't help someone when I should have, and I've been carrying that weight ever since." He looked at her. "Maybe this is my chance to set it down." Emma felt tears sting her eyes. She nodded. "All right," she whispered. "All right." Luke pulled the blanket over her shoulders again. "Get some sleep. I'll keep watch." He moved to the window and stood there silhouetted against the firelight, rifle in hand. Outside, the storm finally broke. Rain hammered the roof. Thunder rolled across the valley like cannon fire. And Emma, exhausted and broken and terrified, closed her eyes and let the darkness take her. But even in sleep, she could still hear Wade's voice. "There ain't no gold. Never was. Except there was. And now, God help her, she had to find it before someone else did." Emma woke to the smell of coffee and the sound of rain still drumming against the roof. For one blissful moment, she forgot where she was. Then the pain hit her arms, her face, her shoulder, and memory came flooding back with it. Wade's blood on the kitchen floor, the sound of his ribs breaking under their boots, the way his hand had reached for hers one last time before going still. She sat up too fast. The room spun. "Easy." Luke's voice came from across the room. He was sitting at the table near the window, a tin cup in his hands. "You're safe. Still safe." Emma pressed her palm against her eyes. "I thought it was a nightmare." "I know the feeling." She lowered her hand and looked at him. He hadn't slept that much, was obvious. His eyes were red-rimmed, his jaw tight. The rifle leaned against the wall beside him within easy reach. "Did anyone else come?" she asked. "No, storm kept them away, I expect." Luke stood and poured coffee from a dented pot on the stove. He brought it to her. "Drink this. Then we need to talk." Emma took the cup. The warmth felt good against her palms. She sipped slowly, letting the bitter heat steady her nerves. Luke returned to the window and pulled the curtain aside just enough to peer out. "I buried them before dawn," he said quietly. Out past the barn, ground was soft from the rain. Emma's stomach turned. All three. She stared down into her coffee. "I should feel something. Guilt, maybe, or relief, but I don't feel anything." "You're in shock," Luke said. "Give it time. The feelings will come whether you want them or not." "How do you know?" He didn't answer right away. When he did, his voice was flat. "Because I've been where you are more than once." Emma looked at him, really looked at him, and saw the lines carved deep around his eyes, the scars on his knuckles, the way he held himself like a man always expecting the next blow. This wasn't a blacksmith, this was a soldier, one who'd never truly left the war behind. "What happened to you?" she asked softly. Luke let the curtain fall closed. "Long story, not a good one. I've got time. No, he said, turning to face her. You don't. Because in about 2 hours, the sheriff's going to ride out here asking questions about the gunshots last night. And we need to have our story straight before he does. Emma's chest tightened. The sheriff. McCready. He's not a bad man, but he's not a brave one either. If he thinks there's more trouble coming, he'll tell you to leave the valley and never look back. Luke crossed his arms. Question is, do you want to leave? Emma thought about Wade, about the house they'd built together, the garden she'd planted last spring, the life they'd carved out of nothing. Then she thought about the map in the crate, the gold coin, the secret Wade had kept from her. I want answers, she said. I want to know why my husband died. Luke nodded slowly. Then we ride to Willow Creek today, before word spreads any further. What about the sheriff? We'll deal with him first. Emma set down the coffee cup. Her hands were shaking again. Luke, I don't know how to do this. I don't know how to fight. You don't have to fight, Luke said. You just have to stand. I'll handle the rest. Why are you doing this? You don't owe me anything. Luke was quiet for a long moment. He walked to the mantel and picked up a small wooden frame Emma hadn't noticed before. The photograph inside was faded, a young woman with dark hair and kind eyes standing beside a boy no older than 10. I had a wife once, Luke said softly, and a son. This was them. Emma's breath caught. What happened? Raiders came through during the war. I was away with my regiment. By the time I got home, his voice broke. He set the frame down carefully. They were already gone, buried in the yard behind the house I'd built for her. Luke, I'm so sorry. I spent 5 years hunting the men who did it, found 4 of them, killed every last one. He turned to face her and his eyes were hollow, but it didn't bring them back, didn't change anything, just left me with more ghosts. Emma felt tears prick her eyes. So why help me? Because maybe if I help you, I can finally stop seeing their faces every time I close my eyes. He picked up his rifle. Get dressed. We've got work to do. 20 minutes later, Emma stood in the borrowed clothes Luke had given her, her trousers and a work shirt that hung loose onto her frame. She felt strange in them, almost like someone else. Luke was outside saddling 2 horses, moving with the easy efficiency of a man who'd done it 1,000 times. Emma stepped out onto the porch. The rain had stopped, but the sky was still heavy with clouds. The valley stretched out before her, green and quiet. Beautiful. Deadly. Can you ride? Luke asked without looking up. It's been a while, but yes. Good, we've got about 10 miles to cover. He finished with the first horse, a gray mare with gentle eyes, and moved to the second, a dark stallion that stamped impatiently. This is Ash. He's temperamental but fast. You'll take Millie. She's steady. Emma approached Millie slowly, running her hand along the mare's neck. The horse nickered softly. Hello, girl. Luke handed her the reins. You remember how to mount? I think so. She put her foot in the stirrup and pulled herself up. Her shoulders screamed in protest, but she bit down on the pain and settled into the saddle. Luke swung up onto Ash like he'd been born in a saddle. Stay close, he said. If you see riders, you tell me immediately, understand? Emma nodded. They rode out, leaving the ranch behind. The valley opened up around them, rolling hills and scattered oaks. The distant mountains jagged against the gray sky. Emma tried not to think about Wade. Tried not to imagine his body still lying on their kitchen floor, cold and alone. Tell me about him, Luke said after a while. Emma blinked. What? Your husband, tell me about him. She didn't know why, but the request loosened something in her chest. His name was Wade Darnell. We met at a church social in Kansas. He was shy, could barely look me in the eye when he asked me to dance. She smiled despite herself. But he was kind and patient. He wanted to build something that mattered. Did he? I thought so. We had a good life, simple but good. Her smile faded. I never knew he was keeping secrets. Maybe he wasn't, Luke said. Maybe he found the gold recently, didn't have time to tell you. Or maybe he didn't trust me. Luke glanced at her. You don't believe that. I don't know what to believe anymore. They rode in silence for another mile. The creek came into view, a silver ribbon winding through the valley floor. Luke reined in his horse and dismounted. Emma followed suit, her legs unsteady after so long in the saddle. This is it, Luke said, pulling the map from his saddlebag. He unfolded it carefully, comparing the landmarks to the terrain around them. Wade marked a spot about a quarter-mile upstream, near a lightning-struck oak. They walked along the creek bank, the water rushing cold and clear over smooth stones. Emma's heart pounded. Part of her wanted to find the gold to prove Wade hadn't died for nothing. Another part of her wanted to turn and run to pretend none of this had ever happened. There, Luke said, pointing. The oak stood alone on a small rise, its trunk split down the middle by some long-ago strike. The blackened wood was stark against the green hillside. Luke approached it slowly, scanning the ground. Emma hung back, suddenly afraid. "What are we looking for?" she asked. "Loose dirt, disturbed ground, anything that doesn't belong." Luke knelt beside the tree and brushed aside leaves and debris. His hand stopped. "Emma, come here." She moved to his side. He was staring at a patch of earth that looked different from the rest, darker, softer, recently turned. "Is that—" "Yeah." Luke pulled a small folding shovel from his belt and started digging. The soil came away easily. 6 inches down, his shovel hit something solid with a dull thunk. Wood. Luke dug faster now, clearing away the dirt, until a wooden chest emerged, small, maybe 2 feet long, wrapped in oilcloth. He lifted it out and set it on the ground between them. The chest was locked, but the wood was old and weak. Luke pried it open with his knife. Inside, nestled in rotting velvet, were dozens of gold coins. Spanish doubloons, American eagles, even a few foreign pieces Emma didn't recognize. The sunlight caught them, turning them to fire. "Oh my God," Emma whispered. Luke lifted one, turned it over in his palm. "This is real, all of it." He looked up at her. "Your husband wasn't lying. He really did find gold." Emma sank to her knees beside the chest. "How much is this worth?" "Enough to buy 3 ranches this size, maybe more." Luke placed the coin back carefully. "Enough to kill 4. The words hung in the air between them. "Bridger said everybody in town knew," Emma said slowly. "But how Wade never told anyone. He barely left the property. Somebody saw him or heard something. Could have been anyone." Luke closed the chest and rewrapped it in the oilcloth. "Doesn't matter now. What matters is getting this somewhere safe before someone else comes looking. What do we do with it?" Luke stood, lifting the chest. It was heavy, maybe 40 pounds. "We take it back to my place, hide it properly this time, then we figure out who set Bridger and his boys on your husband." Emma rose shakily. "And if we find out who—" Luke's jaw tightened. "Then we have a conversation." They carried the chest back to the horses and secured it to Ash's saddle. Emma was about to mount when she heard it, the distant sound of hoofbeats. "Luke, I hear it." He pulled his rifle from its scabbard. "Get behind the oak, now." Emma ran. Luke followed, positioning himself where he could see the trail. The hoofbeats grew louder. Emma's heart hammered against her ribs. A single rider appeared, moving fast. As he got closer, Emma saw the glint of a badge on his chest. "It's McCready," Luke said, lowering his rifle slightly. "The sheriff." Emma exhaled. "That's good, right? Maybe, maybe not." Sheriff McCready was a heavy-set man in his 50s with a thick mustache and tired eyes. He reined in his horse when he saw Luke step out from behind the tree. "Ramsay," McCready said, his voice gruff. "Heard gunshots last night, multiple shots. You know anything about that?" "Might have been target practice," Luke said evenly. "At midnight in a storm." Luke shrugged. "Insomnia." McCready's eyes narrowed. Then he noticed Emma stepping out from the oak. His expression shifted to concern. "Ma'am, you all right?" Emma hesitated. Luke gave her the smallest nod. 3 men attacked my home last night, she said, her voice stronger than she felt. They killed my husband and came after me. I ran to Mr. Ramsay's ranch. He defended me. McCrady's face darkened. 3 men, Jack Bridger, Harlan Moss, and Pete Talbot, Luke said. They're dead. I killed them. Self-defense. The sheriff was quiet for a long moment. He looked between Luke and Emma, then at the chest tied to Ash's saddle. What's in the box? Personal effects, Luke said smoothly. From Mrs. Darnell's home. I helped her retrieve them this morning. McCrady didn't look convinced. Bridger and his boys have been terrorizing this valley for months. Can't say I'm sorry they're gone. He shifted in his saddle. But their friends won't be. You killed 3 men, Ramsay. That doesn't just disappear. I know. Then you also know more will come. Bridger rode with at least a dozen others. When they find out what happened, let them come, Luke said flatly. McCrady shook his head. You're a fool, both of you. He turned to Emma. Ma'am, I'm sorry for your loss. But my advice, take whatever's in that chest and get as far from this valley as you can, tonight. And if I don't want to leave, Emma asked, then you'll end up like your husband, buried in the ground with nothing to show for it but a gravestone. McCrady gathered his reins. I'll file a report saying it was self-defense. That'll buy you maybe 2 days before the rest of Bridger's gang hears about it. After that, he met Luke's eyes. You're on your own. He rode off without another word. Emma watched him disappear over the ridge. He's right, isn't he? More will come. Probably. And you're still willing to help me. Luke secured the chest more tightly to the saddle. I told you, I'm done running from ghosts. He looked at her. Question is, are you? Emma thought about Wade, about the life they'd built, about the gold he'd hidden, the secret he'd kept, the dream he'd died protecting. She thought about the house she'd never sleep in again, the garden that would grow wild without her. Then she thought about the men who'd killed him, the ones who'd beaten him while he begged them to stop, the ones who were still out there, unpunished. No, she said quietly, I'm not running. Luke nodded once. Then let's go home. They mounted and rode back toward the ranch. The sun was high now, burning through the clouds. Emma felt it on her face, warm and relentless. She didn't feel like the woman she'd been 3 days ago. That woman had been soft, trusting, safe. This woman, the one riding beside a killer through a dangerous valley with a fortune in gold, this woman was someone else entirely. They were a mile from the ranch when Luke suddenly raised his hand. Stop. Emma pulled Millie to a halt. What is it? Luke was staring at the tree line ahead. Smoke! Emma followed his gaze. A thin column of gray smoke was rising from the direction of Luke's ranch. Her stomach dropped. Is that? Yeah. Luke kicked Ash into a gallop. Come on. They raced across the valley, the horses' hooves pounding the earth. As they crested the final hill, Emma saw it. Luke's ranch was burning. The barn was fully engulfed, flames licking 50 feet into the air. The house was starting to catch smoke pouring from the windows, and standing in the yard watching it burn were 4 men on horseback. Luke reined in hard, his hand going to his rifle. Emma stopped beside him, her breath coming in gasps. One of the riders turned. He was young, maybe 25, with cold blue eyes and a scar across his throat. When he saw Luke, he smiled. You must be Ramsay, the man called out. Heard you killed my brother last night. Luke's voice was ice. If your brother was Jack Bridger, then yeah, I put him in the ground where he belongs. The young man's smile widened. Name's Cole Bridger, and you just made the last mistake of your life. He drew his pistol. Luke was faster. The rifle cracked twice. Cole's horse reared. One of the other riders fell. The remaining 2 scattered, firing wildly as they spurred their horses toward cover. Go! Luke shouted to Emma. Ride north. Don't stop. I'm not leaving you. Emma, go. A bullet whined past her head. Emma didn't think. She kicked Millie hard, and the mare bolted, carrying her away from the burning ranch, away from the gunfire, away from Luke. She looked back once. Luke was dismounting, rifle raised, walking calmly toward the two remaining riders, like he had all the time in the world, like he wasn't afraid of dying. Maybe he wasn't. Emma turned forward and rode as hard as she could, tears streaming down her face, Wade's gold bouncing against Ash's flank, the valley stretching out before her like a promise and a threat. She didn't know where she was going. She only knew she couldn't stop. Because if she stopped, they'd kill her. Just like they'd killed Wade. Just like they were probably killing Luke right now. Emma rode for what felt like hours, but was probably only 20 minutes. Her lungs burned. Her thighs ached from gripping the saddle. Millie was breathing hard, foam flecking her neck. But the mare kept going. Behind them, the gunfire had stopped. Emma didn't know if that was good or bad. She didn't know if Luke was alive or dead. The thought made her chest tighten so hard she almost couldn't breathe. She barely knew the man. He was a stranger who'd saved her life, killed for her, fought for her, and now he might be dead because of her, because of Wade's gold, because of secrets and lies and greed. Millie stumbled. Emma pulled her to a stop beside a narrow creek, dismounting on shaking legs. The mare drank deeply while Emma splashed water on her face, trying to think. The chest was still tied to Ash's saddle. 40 pounds of gold, enough to change her life, enough to end it. She should keep riding, get as far from the valley as possible. Take the gold and disappear into some distant town where no one knew her name or what she'd lost. But she couldn't, because Luke had told her to run, and she'd listened. And now he might be dying in the dirt, while she stood here like a coward. Emma pressed her palms against her eyes. Wade's voice echoed in her memory, gentle and steady. "You're stronger than you think, Em. You just don't know it yet." She lowered her hands, looked back the way she'd come. Smoke still rose in the distance, a dark smudge against the afternoon sky. "God forgive me," she whispered. She mounted Millie again and turned the mare around. They moved slower this time, cautiously following the creek bed where the trees provided cover. Emma's heart hammered with every step. She expected gunfire at any moment, expected to find Luke's body sprawled in the yard, his blood mixing with the ashes of his home. But when she finally crept close enough to see the ranch, what she found was worse. Luke was alive. He was on his knees, in the dirt, hands bound behind his back, blood running from a gash above his eye. Cole Bridger stood over him, pistol aimed at Luke's head. The other rider, a thick-shouldered man with a shaved scalp, was pouring something from a jug over the remains of the barn. Kerosene, probably, making sure nothing survived. Emma's breath stopped. "Where'd the woman go?" Cole was saying. His voice carried across the yard, cold and amused. "The widow. Where'd she run to?" Luke spat blood. "Go to hell." Cole backhanded him across the face. Luke's head snapped sideways, but he didn't fall, didn't cry out. "You got sand, old man, I'll give you that." Cole crouched down, bringing his face level with Luke's. "But sand don't stop bullets. So I'll ask one more time, where's the gold?" "There is no gold." "Liar." Cole stood and nodded to the bald man. "Check the horses." Emma's stomach dropped. The chest. They'd find the chest. The bald man walked toward where Ash and Luke's other horse were tied near the fence. Ash stamped nervously, ears flicking. The man reached for the saddlebag, started loosening the ties on the oilcloth bundle. Emma didn't let herself think. She pulled Wade's old revolver from her belt. She'd found it in Luke's house that morning, loaded it without really knowing why, and stepped out from behind the trees. "Get away from that horse," she called out. 3 heads turned toward her soul. Cole's eyes widened. Then he laughed. Well, the widow's got teeth after all. Emma kept the revolver raised, both hands wrapped around the grip the way Wade had shown her years ago. Her arms trembled, but her voice stayed steady. "Let him go." "Or what?" "You'll shoot me." Cole spread his arms wide. "Go ahead, sweetheart. Take your shot." "Emma, don't." Luke started, but Cole kicked him in the ribs, cutting him off. The bald man was moving now, circling toward her left. Emma swung the gun toward him. "Stay where you are." "She's bluffing," the bald man said. Woman like that's never fired a gun in her life. That true? Cole asked, grinning. You ever kill a man, Mrs. Darnell? Emma's finger tightened on the trigger. Not yet. See, I don't believe you got the stomach for it. Cole walked toward her slowly, casually, like she wasn't even a threat. I think you're gonna stand there shaking until one of us takes that gun away, and Emma fired. The shot went wide, kicking up dirt 3 feet to Cole's left. The recoil nearly tore the gun from her hands, but it stopped Cole in his tracks. His grin faded. You little... Emma cocked the hammer again, steadier this time. Next one won't miss. For a long moment, nobody moved. Emma could hear her own heartbeat thundering in her ears, could feel sweat running down her spine. The gun felt impossibly heavy. Cole's eyes flickered to the bald man, some silent communication passing between them. Then he smiled again, cold and calculating. All right, he said, raising his hands. You win. We'll leave. But first, you gotta answer one question. What? Who told your husband where to find that gold? Emma blinked. What are you talking about? The gold at Willow Creek. Somebody told Wade Darnell exactly where to dig. Somebody who knew it was there. Cole took another step forward. So who was it? I don't know. Wade never said. Liar. Cole's voice turned sharp. My brother didn't just wake up one morning and decide to rob your husband. Somebody in town told him Wade had gold. Somebody who wanted us to do their dirty work. He gestured at the chest on Ash's saddle. That much gold don't just appear. It was hidden, waiting, and somebody knew about it. Emma's mind raced. Cole was right. Wade wasn't a prospector. He was a farmer. How would he have known where to dig unless someone told him? I don't know, she said again, quieter this time. I swear, I don't know. Cole studied her face. Whatever he saw there must have convinced him because he lowered his hands. Then you and me got the same problem. Somebody played us all, set this whole thing in motion. That doesn't change what you did, Emma said. You killed my husband. My brother killed your husband, and your friend there killed my brother. Far as I'm concerned, that's even. Cole nutted toward Luke. But if we don't figure out who's really behind this, more people are gonna die, starting with you two. The bald man shifted impatiently. Cole, we ain't got time for this. Let's just take the gold and... Shut up, Decker. Cole never took his eyes off Emma. Here's what's gonna happen. You're gonna untie Ramsay. We're all gonna ride into town together, and we're gonna find out who set this whole mess in motion. And if I say no... Cole's smile returned, but there was no humor in it. Then Decker puts a bullet in Ramsay's head, and we take the gold off your corpse. Your choice. Emma's arms were shaking so badly now she could barely keep the gun raised. She wanted to pull the trigger, wanted to kill Cole Bridger the same way Luke had killed his brother, but she knew she'd miss. Knew Decker would shoot Luke before she could fire a second time. She lowered the gun. Fine, she whispered. But if you hurt him, I won't. Not unless you give me a reason to. Cole holstered his pistol and walked to Luke. He cut the ropes binding Luke's wrists with a knife. On your feet, old man. Luke stood slowly wincing. His ribs were probably broken from the kick. Blood still dripped from the cut above his eye, but when he looked at Emma, his expression was fierce. You should have kept riding, he said quietly. I know. You're a fool. I know that too. Something flickered in Luke's eyes, surprise maybe, or respect. He turned to Cole. If this is a trick, it's not. I want answers same as you. Cole whistled to Decker. Get the horses, all of them. Decker grumbled but obeyed, gathering the reins of all 4 horses. Emma and Luke mounted Millie and Ash, while Cole and Decker took their own rides. The chest remained tied to Ash's saddle, clearly visible. Cole noticed but didn't comment. They rode in tense silence, 2 and 2 predators, and prey trying to pretend they weren't both. Emma kept her hand near the revolver. Luke's rifle was back in its scabbard, but she knew he could draw it in seconds if needed. The town was 5 miles away. As they rode, Emma's mind churned. Someone had told Wade about the gold. Someone had told Bridger that Wade had found it. The same person, or two different players in a game she didn't understand. Luke, she said quietly, keeping her voice low enough that Cole and Decker wouldn't hear. Who knew about the gold originally before Wade found it? Could have been anyone. Spanish conquistadors came through here 200 years ago. Could have buried it then, or it could have been stolen during the war, hidden by deserters. Luke shifted in his saddle, grimacing at the pain in his ribs. But you're asking the right question. Who knew Wade dug it up? He must have told someone, or someone saw him, or someone sent him there deliberately. Luke's voice was grim. Someone who wanted the gold but didn't want to get their own hands dirty. You think it was planned, all of it? I think your husband was a pawn, just like Bridger's gang. Luke glanced back at Cole and Decker, just like we all are. Emma felt sick. Wade had died thinking he was protecting a secret, but maybe the secret had been designed to kill him all along. The town appeared on the horizon, a cluster of wooden buildings, straddling a dusty main street. Emma had been here a dozen times with Wade, buying supplies, attending Sunday services. It had always felt safe, ordinary. Now it felt like a trap. They rode in slowly, drawing stares from folks on the boardwalk. Emma saw Mrs. Henderson from the general store, her eyes going wide. Saw Pastor Mills pause mid-stride, his Bible clutched to his chest. Saw Sheriff McCready step out of his office, hand moving to his gun belt. Cole raised one hand in a placating gesture. Easy, Sheriff. We're here to talk. McCready's eyes moved from Cole to Luke to Emma. His face darkened. Bridger, should have known you'd come crawling out eventually. My brother's dead, Cole said flatly. Ramsay killed him, but that's not why I'm here. Then why? Because somebody in this town set my brother up to die, and I aim to find out who. A murmur ran through the gathered crowd. McCready stepped into the street, his hand still on his gun. You're making serious accusations, boy. Am I? Cole dismounted, facing the sheriff. 3 days ago, somebody told my brother that Wade Darnell had gold. Told him exactly where Wade lived, exactly when to hit him. My brother wasn't smart enough to come up with that plan himself. Your brother was a murderer and a thief, McCready snapped. I don't care who pointed him in what direction. Then you're a fool. Cole's voice cut across the street. Because whoever set this up is still out there, still pulling strings, and they're gonna keep killing until they get what they want. Emma dismounted, legs unsteady. Luke followed, staying close to her side. The crowd was growing now, more people emerging from shops and houses. She recognized most of them, neighbors, friends, people who'd brought food after Wade's father died, who'd helped with the harvest last fall. One of them was a killer. Mrs. Darnell. McCready turned to her, his expression softening slightly. I'm sorry for your loss, but you shouldn't be here. This doesn't concern you anymore. It concerns me more than anyone, Emma said, her voice stronger than she felt. My husband was murdered for gold he didn't steal. Someone in this town knew about it, someone who's hiding in plain sight. That's a serious accusation. It's the truth. A voice spoke up from the crowd. Maybe she's right. Everyone turned. An old man stepped forward, Chester Ames, who owned the land office. His face was creased with age and worry. I've been thinking about this since I heard Wade was killed. About 3 weeks ago, a stranger came through town asking questions, wanted to know about land claims near Willow Creek. I told him Wade had filed a stake there last year. Emma's breath caught. What did this stranger look like? Tall, well-dressed, had a scar here. Chester touched his chin. Never gave a name, paid for the information and left. You didn't think to mention this to the sheriff? McCready demanded. Chester shrugged helplessly. Didn't seem important at the time. Lots of folks ask about land claims. Cole turned to Emma. Your husband ever mention a man like that? No, never. Luke spoke up, his voice hard. A stranger asks about Wade's land. Days later, Bridger's gang shows up at his door. That's not coincidence. But who was he working for? Emma asked. Who wanted the gold bad enough to orchestrate murder? I might know. Another voice. Emma turned and saw Martin Pierce stepping out of the saloon. He was the town's only lawyer, a thin man with wire-rimmed glasses and a perpetual frown. There's been a land buyer circling the valley for months, trying to buy up properties cheap, offers cash, no questions asked. Who is he? Luke demanded. Calls himself Thompson, James Thompson, says he represents mining interests back east. Martin's eyes swept the crowd. But here's the thing, he's only interested in properties near water sources. Creeks, specifically. Emma felt the pieces clicking into place, because that's where the gold would be. Exactly. Spanish gold was transported along waterways. If Thompson knows the old routes, he'd know where to look for buried treasure. Martin pushed his glasses up his nose. I did some checking. There is no James Thompson registered with any mining company in the United States. The crowd erupted in angry murmurs. McCready held up both hands. All right, everyone calm down. Pierce, where's this Thompson now? Last I heard, he was staying at the hotel. Room 7. Cole was already moving. Then let's have a conversation with Mr. Thompson. McCready stepped in front of him. You're not doing anything. This is my town, and I'll handle it. Your town? Cole's voice dripped contempt. Where were you when my brother was terrorizing homesteads? Where were you when Wade Darnell was getting beaten to death? You don't handle anything, Sheriff. You just clean up the mess after. McCready's face flushed red. Watch your mouth, boy. Stop. Emma's voice cut through the argument. Both men turned to look at her. This isn't about jurisdiction or pride. A man is dead. My husband is dead. And if Thompson's responsible, then we need to know, all of us. For a moment, McCready looked like he might argue. Then his shoulders sagged. Fine, but I'm coming with you, and if anyone pulls a gun, I'm arresting everyone. Clear. Cole nodded curtly. Luke said nothing, but Emma saw his hand drift toward his rifle. They walked to the hotel. Emma, Luke, Cole, Decker, and McCready trailed by half the town. Emma's heart pounded with every step. She didn't know what she'd do when she saw Thompson. Scream at him, shoot him, fall apart. The hotel was a 2-story building with peeling paint and a crooked sign. The proprietor, a nervous woman named Helen, stammered when she saw the crowd. Room 7, she said, pointing up the stairs. But he checked out this morning, paid his bill, and left. Emma's stomach dropped. Where'd he go? Didn't say, just loaded his things onto a wagon and headed north. Cole swore viciously. McCready looked relieved, but Luke was already moving, taking the stairs 2 at a time. Emma followed, pushing past the sheriff. Room 7's door was unlocked. Inside the room was bare except for the furniture, but on the small desk by the window, someone had left a single sheet of paper. Luke picked it up, read it, and his face went pale. He handed it to Emma without a word. The note was written in neat, precise handwriting. Mrs. Darnell, by the time you read this, you'll have figured out that your husband's death was no accident. I needed him to find the gold, and I needed him removed once he had. Consider this my apology for the collateral damage. The gold is yours now. Do with it what you will. But know this, there are 5 more caches hidden throughout the valley, and I will have them all one way or another. You can run or you can fight. Choose wisely. J.T. Emma's hands shook so badly she almost dropped the paper. Luke took it from her gently. He used Wade, she whispered, like a tool, found the gold, then threw him away. And he'll keep killing until he finds the rest, Luke said grimly. Cole appeared in the doorway, read the note over Luke's shoulder. His jaw clenched. 5 more caches. That means 5 more families in danger. We have to warn them, Emma said. We have to. Warn them how? Cole interrupted. We don't know who Thompson's targeting next. Could be anyone near a creek. That's half the valley. McCready pushed into the room. This is beyond me. I'm sending for federal marshals. This is murder conspiracy. Marshals will take weeks, Luke said. Thompson will be long gone by then, with all the gold. Emma stared at the note. Her husband had died for this, for treasure he'd never wanted orchestrated by a man he'd never met. Rage built in her chest, hot and sharp. "He's not getting away with it," she said quietly. Everyone looked at her. "Emma," Luke started. "He killed Wade. He used him and killed him and walked away like it was nothing." Emma met Luke's eyes. "You asked if I was done running. I am. Thompson wants a fight, then that's what he'll get." "You can't fight a man like that," McCready protested. "He's got resources, connections, and I've got nothing left to lose." Emma turned to Cole. "You want answers? So do I. Help me find Thompson. Help me make him pay." Cole studied her for a long moment. Then slowly, he nodded. "All right, Mrs. Darnell, you got yourself a deal." Luke closed his eyes briefly like he was praying. When he opened them, he looked tired, old, but resolved. "Then we're gonna need more guns," he said quietly, "and a plan." They gathered in the back room of the saloon away from prying eyes. Emma sat at a scarred wooden table across from Cole and Luke. Decker leaned against the wall, arms crossed. McCready had stayed outside trying to calm the townspeople who were demanding answers, demanding justice, demanding something he couldn't give them. Martin Pierce spread a hand-drawn map across the table. His finger traced the creek systems that ran through the valley like veins. "If Thompson's looking for Spanish gold caches, he'll follow the old trade routes," Martin said. "The Spanish moved through here in the 1600s, heading north from Mexico. They'd bury supplies and treasure along the way, planning to retrieve them later. Most were never recovered." "How many sites are we talking about?" Luke asked. "Based on historical records, maybe a dozen in this valley alone." But Thompson's note said 5 more caches. Martin tapped several points on the map. "These are the most likely locations, all near creeks, all on private land." Emma studied the marks. One was near the Hendersons' farm, another by the old Pritchard place, a third upstream from where they'd found Wade's gold. "We need to get to these families before Thompson does," she said, "and tell them what—" Cole leaned back in his chair. "That there might be gold on their land and a murderer's coming for it. They'll either think we're crazy or they'll start digging themselves." "Then we don't tell them about the gold," Luke said. "We tell them there's a dangerous man in the valley, that they need to be armed and careful." "That could work for a few days," Martin said slowly, "but Thompson's patient. He waited months to make his move on Wade. He'll wait us out." Emma's frustration built. "So what do we do? Let him pick off families one by one?" "No." Cole straightened. "We set a trap." Everyone looked at him. "Thompson wants the gold, right? So we let him think he's found another cache. Spread word around town that someone's discovered Spanish coins near Devil's Bend." Cole's eyes were hard, calculating. "When Thompson shows up to investigate, we'll be waiting." "Devil's Bend is 15 miles north," Luke said. "Rough country, good place for an ambush, but also a good place to get ambushed yourself. That's why we do it right. Small group, well-armed, hidden." Cole looked at Emma. "You up for this?" Emma thought about Wade lying dead in their kitchen, about the way his hand had reached for hers one last time, about Thompson's cold, clinical note treating murder like a business transaction. "Yes," she said. "I'm up for it." Martin cleared his throat nervously. "There's one problem. How do we spread the rumor without Thompson knowing it's a trap? He's smart. He'll be suspicious of anything too convenient." "We use someone he'd believe," Luke said. "Someone who has no reason to lie." "Like who?" "Like Chester Ames." Luke turned to Martin. "Thompson already questioned him once about land claims. If Chester let slip that someone found coins at Devil's Bend, Thompson might bite. You want me to ask Chester to lie?" Martin looked uncomfortable. "He's a good man. He might not agree." "Then we tell him the truth," Emma interrupted. "We tell him what Thompson did to Wade. We tell him more people will die unless we stop this. Chester knew my husband. He'll help." Martin hesitated, then nodded. "I'll talk to him." "Do it quietly," Cole said. "Thompson might have eyes in town. We can't trust anyone we don't have to." Emma felt a chill, the idea that neighbors, friends, People she'd known for years might be working for Thompson. It made her stomach turn. But Cole was right. They couldn't afford to trust freely anymore. "When do we move?" Decker spoke up for the first time, his voice rough as gravel. "Tomorrow night," Luke said. "That gives Martin time to plant the rumor, gives us time to scout Devil's Bend and set up positions." He looked at each of them in turn. "This is dangerous. If Thompson brings men with him, we could be outnumbered." "Then we bring more people," Emma said. "Sheriff McCready." "McCready's useless," Cole cut in. "He'll follow the law right up until bullets start flying, then he'll freeze. I've seen it before." "He's still the law," Emma insisted. "If we kill Thompson without the sheriff present, we're just murderers ourselves." Cole's jaw tightened. For a moment Emma thought he'd argue. Then he shrugged. "Fine, but he stays back unless things go wrong. This is our fight." "Agreed," Luke said. They spent the next hour planning who would take which position, what signals they'd use, what to do if Thompson didn't come alone. Emma listened, trying to memorize everything, trying to ignore the voice in her head that said she was going to get someone killed. Finally, Martin stood. "I should go find Chester. The sooner we start the rumor, the sooner Thompson hears it." "Be careful," Emma said. "Don't let anyone see you talking to him privately." Martin nodded and slipped out the back door. Decker followed, muttering something about needing a drink. That left Emma, Luke, and Cole alone. Cole studied Emma across the table. "You handled yourself well today. With the gun, I mean. Most women would have fallen apart." "I almost did. But you didn't. That counts." He stood, stretched. "My brother was a bastard, but he was still my brother. I need you to know when this is over, you and me are square. But Ramsay here killed Jack. That debt stays." Luke's expression didn't change. "Fair enough. After we deal with Thompson, you and I settle things," Cole said. "Your choice of terms, but we settle it." "Understood." Cole nodded and walked out, leaving them alone. Emma exhaled slowly, feeling the tension drain from her shoulders. She hadn't realized how tightly she'd been holding herself together. "You shouldn't have come back for me," Luke said quietly. Emma looked at him. The cut above his eye had stopped bleeding, but the skin around it was purple with bruising. His movements were careful, favoring his injured ribs. "I know," she said. "I told you to run." "I know that too. So why didn't you?" Emma was quiet for a moment. "Because I'm tired of running, tired of being afraid. Wade spent his whole life being careful, being safe, and look where it got him." Her voice cracked slightly. "Maybe if I'd been braver, stronger, I could have saved him." "You couldn't have," Luke said firmly. 3 armed men against 1 woman, you'd be dead too." "At least I'd have tried." Luke reached across the table and covered her hand with his. His palm was warm, calloused. "Listen to me. What happened to Wade wasn't your fault. And what you did today, coming back, standing up to Cole, that took more courage than most men have. Don't diminish that." Emma felt tears burning behind her eyes, but refused to let them fall. "I don't feel courageous. I feel terrified." "Good. Fear keeps you sharp, keeps you alive." Luke squeezed her hand once, then let go. "But tomorrow night, when we're at Devil's Bend, I need you to do exactly what I say. No hesitation, no second guessing. Can you do that?" "Yes." "Even if I tell you to run again." Emma met his eyes. "Even then." They stayed in the saloon until dark, going over the plan again and again, until Emma could recite it in her sleep. Luke sent word to Sheriff McCready about their intentions. The sheriff wasn't happy, but agreed to ride with them, provided everything stayed legal. "Legal?" Cole had snorted when he heard. "We're planning an ambush. There's nothing legal about it." But Emma understood McCready's position. He was trying to hold the valley together, trying to maintain some semblance of law and order in a place that was quickly falling apart. She didn't envy him. As night fell, Luke walked Emma to the boarding house where she'd taken a room. The street was quiet now, most folks inside with their doors locked. Fear had settled over the town like fog. "Get some sleep," Luke said at the door. Tomorrow's going to be a long day." "Luke," Emma turned to face him, "what you said earlier about not helping someone when you should have, your wife and son, do you really think helping me will make up for that?" Luke was quiet for a long time. When he spoke, his voice was distant. "No, nothing will make up for that, but maybe if I do enough good, eventually the scales will balance a little." He looked at her. "Or maybe I'm just a fool who can't let go of the past." "You're not a fool," Emma said softly. "We'll see." He tipped his hat. "Good night, Emma." She watched him walk away, this broken man who'd killed for her, fought for her, who was preparing to risk his life again tomorrow. She barely knew him, but somehow, in the span of 2 days, he'd become the only person in the world she trusted completely. Emma went inside and climbed the stairs to her room. It was small, sparse, with a narrow bed and a wash basin. She sat on the edge of the bed and finally let herself cry. For Wade, for the life they'd built, for the innocence she'd lost, but mostly for the woman she'd been 3 days ago, who'd believed the world was basically good and that hard work and honesty were enough to keep you safe. That woman was gone. In her place was someone harder, someone who could point a gun at another human being without flinching, someone who could plan an ambush and mean it. Emma didn't know if she liked this new version of herself, but she knew it was the only version that would survive what was coming. She woke before dawn to someone knocking on her door. Luke's voice came through the wood. "Emma, time to move." She dressed quickly in the borrowed trousers and work shirt, braided her hair back. Wade's revolver went into her belt. She caught her reflection in the cracked mirror above the wash basin and barely recognized herself. Downstairs, Luke was waiting with 2 horses. Cole and Decker were already mounted along with Sheriff McCready and 2 deputies Emma didn't recognize. Martin Pierce stood on the boardwalk looking nervous. "Chester spread the word last night," Martin said quietly. "Made sure to mention it at the saloon where Thompson's been known to drink. If he took the bait, he'll head to Devil's Bend today." "And if he didn't?" McCready asked. "Then we've wasted a day and we're back to square one," Cole said impatiently. "Can we go?" They rode out as the sun was rising, painting the eastern sky gold and pink. Emma tried not to think about how this might be the last sunrise she'd ever see. Tried not to think about Wade buried in the ground while she rode toward more violence, more death. Devil's Bend was aptly named. The creek there twisted through a narrow canyon, the walls steep and covered with scrub brush. Perfect cover for an ambush. Perfect place to die if things went wrong. Luke positioned them carefully. Emma and McCready would be on the south ridge, concealed behind rocks. Luke and Cole would take the north side. Decker and the deputies would watch the eastern approach, making sure Thompson didn't slip past them. "Remember," Luke said as they took their positions, "let him get to the creek. Let him start searching. Once he's committed, that's when we close in." "What if he's not alone?" one of the deputies asked nervously. "Then we adapt." Cole checked his rifle. "But don't fire unless you have to. We need Thompson alive to testify about what he did to Wade Darnell." The deputy nodded, but he looked sick. Emma understood. The boy couldn't be more than 20. He'd probably never shot at anything but bottles and rabbits. Today might change that. They settled in to wait. The sun climbed higher. The day grew hot. Emma's legs cramped from crouching behind the rocks. McCready shifted constantly, sweat soaking through his shirt. Below, the creek burbled peacefully, oblivious to the violence brewing above it. Hours passed. Emma began to think Thompson hadn't taken the bait, that they'd spent all this time preparing for nothing. She was about to suggest they abandon the ambush when Cole's signal came from across the canyon, 2 short whistles like a bird call. Rider approaching. Emma's heart kicked into overdrive. She peered through a gap in the rocks. A single horse picked its way down the canyon trail, a man in a dark suit riding carefully. Even from a distance, Emma could see the scar on his chin. Thompson. He dismounted at the creek's edge, tied his horse to a cottonwood. He carried a small shovel and what looked like surveying equipment. He moved with casual confidence, like a man who had no idea he was being watched, like a man who'd orchestrated murder and felt no guilt about it. Emma's hand went to her revolver. McCready noticed and shook his head sharply. "Wait," he mouthed. Thompson walked along the creek bank, pausing every few yards to examine the ground. He was muttering to himself, comparing something on a paper to the terrain around him. He stopped at a bend in the creek, knelt down, started digging. Cole's signal came again. 3 whistles. "Move in." Emma and McCready stood, emerged from hiding. Across the canyon, Luke and Cole did the same. Decker and the deputies appeared from the eastern trail, cutting off Thompson's escape route. Thompson froze his shovel halfway into the dirt. His head swiveled, taking in the armed figures surrounding him. For a moment, his face showed surprise. Then it smoothed into something colder. "Mrs. Darnell," he called out, his voice carrying across the canyon. "I wondered if you'd figure it out." Emma walked down the slope, her boots sliding on loose rock. McCready followed, gun drawn. Luke and Cole descended from the north side. Within moments, they had Thompson surrounded. "You killed my husband," Emma said, her voice shaking with rage. "Technically, Jack Bridger killed your husband," Thompson corrected. He set down his shovel, slowly raised his hands. "I simply provided information. You orchestrated it. You sent those men to our home knowing they'd kill Wade. I needed the gold retrieved. Your husband was a means to an end." Thompson's tone was conversational, like they were discussing the weather. "Nothing personal." Luke stepped forward, rifle raised. "Nothing personal. You destroyed this woman's life." "Life goes on," Thompson said with a shrug. "She's young. She'll remarry. Have children. Forget about Wade Darnell eventually." Emma's vision went red. She drew her revolver and aimed it at Thompson's chest. "Shut up. Shut up about him." "Emma, don't." McCready reached for her arm, but she shook him off. "You don't get to say his name. You don't get to talk about my life like you understand it." Her finger tightened on the trigger. "You're a monster." "I'm a businessman," Thompson said calmly. "The Spanish hid millions of dollars in gold throughout this territory. Finding it requires research, planning, and yes, occasionally sacrifice. Your husband was unfortunate collateral damage." "He was a person," Emma shouted. "A good man who never hurt anyone. And yet he's dead, and I'm alive. That's how the world works, Mrs. Darnell. The strong survive. The weak." Emma fired. The shot went wide deliberately. She wasn't ready to kill him, not yet, but she wanted him to know she could. Thompson flinched, his composure cracking for the first time. "You're making a mistake. I have resources, connections. You can't just—" "We can and we will," Cole interrupted. "You set my brother up to die. That makes this personal for me too." Thompson's eyes darted between them, calculating. "What do you want? Money I can pay. We want justice," McCready said firmly. "James Thompson, you're under arrest for conspiracy to commit murder." Thompson laughed. It was a cold, brittle sound. "Arrest me with what evidence? I never touched Wade Darnell. I never even met him. You have nothing but speculation and the ravings of a grieving widow." "We have your note," Emma said. Thompson's smile faltered. "To what note?" "The one you left at the hotel, admitting you orchestrated Wade's death, threatening more families." Emma pulled the folded paper from her pocket and held it up. "Signed with your initials." For the first time, Thompson looked genuinely worried. "That note was meant as a warning, a courtesy. It proves nothing." "It proves intent," Martin Pierce's voice called out. The lawyer appeared at the canyon's edge, breathing hard from the ride. "I've consulted with a judge. A written confession of conspiracy combined with witness testimony from Mrs. Darnell and Chester Ames is enough to indict you for murder." Thompson's composure shattered completely. "You can't do this. I have friends in Denver, in Washington, one telegram and nothing," Luke said coldly. "You're in the middle of nowhere, surrounded by people who want you dead. Your friends can't help you now." Thompson looked around wildly. Emma saw the moment he decided to run. His hand moved toward his jacket, going for a hidden gun probably. Cole saw it too and fired. The shot kicked up dirt at Thompson's feet. "Don't," Cole said flatly. "Next one goes center mass." Thompson raised his hands again, trembling now. All his arrogance was gone, replaced by naked fear. Please, I'll give you the locations of the other caches. All of them. You can have the gold. Just let me go. Tell us, Emma said. Thompson hesitated, then started talking. He listed 5 locations, each one matching Martin's predictions on the map. He described the caches in detail, how much gold, what type, how deep it was buried. It was clear he'd researched this for years. Is that all of them? Luke demanded. Yes, I swear that's all. Everything the Spanish left in this valley. And the families living on that land, Emma asked. Were you planning to kill them too, or just ruin them? Thompson didn't answer. He didn't have to. The guilt was written all over his face. McCready stepped forward with iron shackles. James Thompson, you're under arrest. You'll be held in our jail until federal marshals arrive to transport you to Denver for trial. As the sheriff locked the shackles around Thompson's wrists, the man seemed to collapse into himself. All his confidence, his cold calculation, his belief in his own invincibility, it all drained away. He looked like what he was, a man who'd gambled everything on greed and lost. They hauled Thompson onto his horse and bound to the saddle horn. The ride back to town was silent. Emma couldn't take her eyes off him. This was the man who'd destroyed her life, who'd turned her world into a nightmare of blood and fear. And now he was caught, helpless, defeated. She should feel satisfaction, triumph, but all she felt was empty. As they rode into town, people emerged from their houses, lining the street to watch. Word had spread about the ambush, about Thompson's capture. Some folks cheered, others just stared, trying to process everything that had happened. Chester Ames stood outside his land office, his old face lined with sadness. I'm sorry, Mrs. Darnell. I should have told the sheriff about that stranger weeks ago. Maybe if I had, your husband would still be alive. Emma wanted to tell him it wasn't his fault, but she couldn't make the words come. Maybe it was his fault. Maybe it was everyone's fault. Maybe Wade had died because the whole valley had been too complacent, too trusting, too blind to the evil walking among them. They locked Thompson in the jail cell. McCready sent one of his deputies riding hard for Denver to fetch the marshals. Martin began drafting official statements documenting everything that had happened. Cole pulled Emma and Luke aside. We need to talk about the gold, the caches Thompson mentioned. What about them? Luke asked. We tell the families who own that land, give them the choice of what to do with it. Cole met Emma's eyes. Including you. Wade's cache is yours by right. You can take it and leave, start over somewhere else. No one would blame you. Emma thought about the chest still hidden back at Luke's burned ranch, thought about 40 pounds of Spanish gold, enough to live comfortably for the rest of her life. She could leave this valley, leave the memories, leave the pain, but she'd also be leaving the only place she'd ever belonged. I need time to think, she said quietly. Cole nodded. Fair enough. But we settle our business first, Ramsay. Luke's jaw tightened. When? Tomorrow, sunrise, behind the church. Cole's voice was flat final. You killed my brother. Honor demands satisfaction. It was self-defense. Don't care. Tomorrow. Cole turned and walked away, Decker following like a shadow. Emma grabbed Luke's arm. You can't fight him. He'll kill you. Maybe, maybe not. Luke, please. This is insane. Jack Bridger was a murderer. You did what you had to do. And Cole's doing what he has to do, Luke said quietly. It's the code. I knew it when I pulled that trigger. A debt's a debt. Then I'll talk to him. I'll make him understand. Emma. Luke turned to face her, his expression gentle. Some debts can only be paid in blood. This is one of them. Emma felt tears on her cheeks. I can't lose you two. I can't. Luke reached up and wiped a tear away with his thumb. You barely know me. I know enough. For a moment, something passed between them, recognition, understanding, the beginning of something that might have been more if circumstances had been different. Then Luke stepped back, breaking the connection. Get some rest, he said. Whatever happens tomorrow, you'll need your strength." He walked away before she could respond. Emma stood alone in the street as the sun set, painting the sky blood red. Tomorrow, one way or another, this would all be over. She just didn't know if she'd still be standing when it was. Emma didn't sleep that night. She sat by the window of her boarding house room watching the stars wheel overhead, thinking about Luke standing in the dirt behind the church at sunrise while Cole Bridger tried to kill him. She could stop it. She could go to Cole right now, beg him to reconsider, offer him money, offer him anything. But she knew it wouldn't matter. Cole wasn't driven by greed or logic. He was driven by the same thing that had kept Luke alive all these years, the weight of the dead, the need to balance scales that could never truly be balanced. Just before dawn, Emma rose and dressed. She strapped Wade's revolver to her hip, braided her hair, and walked through the empty streets toward the church. The sky was starting to pale in the east, streaks of gold breaking through the darkness. She found Luke already there, standing alone in the churchyard. He'd washed the blood from his face and changed into a clean shirt. His rifle leaned against a headstone nearby. "I asked you to rest," he said, without turning around. "I couldn't." Emma walked to stand beside him. "Luke, you don't have to do this." "Yes, I do." "Why? Because of some code, because Cole demands it. That's not justice, that's just more death." Luke was quiet for a moment. "When I killed those men in Virginia, the ones who murdered my family, I thought it would make me feel better, thought the rage would finally burn itself out." He turned to face her. "But it didn't. It just left more ash, more emptiness. I've been carrying that emptiness for years, Emma, looking for something to fill it. And you think dying for me will fill it. I think trying to protect you might." He smiled faintly. "Even if I fail." Emma wanted to scream at him, shake him, make him see that he didn't owe her this. But before she could speak, voices carried across the churchyard. Cole appeared walking with Decker and two other men Emma didn't recognize. They all carried rifles. "Figured you might not show," Cole said as he approached. "I gave you my word." Luke straightened. "What are the terms?" "Simple. We walk 20 paces apart, turn and fire. First man standing wins. No one interferes." Cole's eyes flicked to Emma. "That includes you, Mrs. Darnell." "This is insane," Emma said desperately. "Your brother was a killer. He got what he deserved." "Maybe so, but Ramsay still pulled the trigger." Cole handed his rifle to Decker. "Code's the code. A brother's blood demands payment." Luke started to remove his gun belt, but Emma grabbed his arm. "Please, let me talk to him. Just give me 5 minutes." "Emma, 5 minutes. That's all I'm asking." Luke hesitated, then nodded. Emma walked over to Cole, who watched her approach with wary eyes. "What do you want?" he asked. "I want you to understand something," Emma said, keeping her voice low. "Your brother didn't just kill my husband. He beat him to death while I hid in the next room. I heard every blow, heard Wade begging them to stop, heard him die." Her voice broke. "Luke saved my life. He killed Jack to protect me. If you kill him now, you're not honoring your brother. You're just continuing the cycle of violence that got Jack killed in the first place." Cole's jaw worked. "You think I don't know that? You think I liked what my brother became?" He looked away. "Jack was different when we were young. He looked out for me, taught me to ride to shoot. Then the war came and it twisted something inside him. By the time it ended, he wasn't my brother anymore. He was just a man who liked hurting people." "Then why are you doing this?" "Because he was still my blood, and because if I don't settle this, it'll eat me alive the same way it ate him." Cole met her eyes. "I'm not asking you to understand. I'm just telling you how it is." Emma saw the pain in his face, the same hollowness that lived in Luke's eyes. These men were both prisoners of violence, locked in patterns they couldn't break, even when they wanted to. "What if there was another way?" she asked quietly. "What if you and Luke worked together instead of killing each other?" "Worked together how?" "Thompson gave us five locations, 5 caches of gold. The families who own that land deserve to know, but they also deserve protection. Thompson might be in jail, but he said he has connections. Partners. What if more people come looking for that gold? Emma took a breath. You want to honor your brother, then help protect innocent people from men like he became. Cole studied her for a long moment. Behind him, Decker shifted impatiently. Cole, we doing this or not? Shut up, Decker. Cole turned back to Emma. You're asking me to forgive the man who killed Jack. I'm asking you to be better than Jack was, to choose life instead of death. Emma's voice was steady now. Your brother's gone, but you're still here. You can still decide what kind of man you want to be. The silence stretched between them. Somewhere in the distance, a rooster crowed. The sun broke over the horizon, flooding the churchyard with golden light. Finally, Cole turned to Luke. Ramsay, come here. Luke walked over slowly, his hand near his gun. Emma held her breath. Mrs. Darnell made a compelling argument, Cole said. Says we should work together instead of shooting each other. That's so. Luke's voice was carefully neutral. Problem is, I still got a debt to settle. Can't just walk away from that. Cole crossed his arms. But maybe there's a middle ground. You and me, we partner up. Help these families protect their land from whoever else comes looking for Thompson's gold. We split whatever reward money there is, assuming the law offers any. And when it's done, when everyone's safe and the gold's secured, then we settle our business. Fair duel, agreed terms. Luke was quiet, thinking. Emma wanted to protest that this was just delaying the inevitable, but she bit her tongue. At least it was a delay. At least it gave Luke time to live. All right, Luke said finally. We have a deal. Cole extended his hand. Luke took it. They shook once, firmly sealing the agreement. Decker spat into the dirt. This is a mistake, Cole. Bridger blood demands. I know what it demands, Cole snapped. But I'm in charge here, not you. We do this my way. Decker's face darkened, but he nodded. The other men looked disappointed, like they'd been expecting entertainment and were being denied. But they followed Cole as he walked away from the church, leaving Emma and Luke alone in the brightening morning. Emma exhaled shakily. I can't believe that worked. It didn't work, Luke said quietly. It just delayed things. Cole meant what he said. When this is over, he and I will finish it. Then we make sure it's never over. We keep finding reasons for you two to work together. Emma. Luke turned to face her. Stop. You can't protect me forever. I can try. Something flickered in his eyes, gratitude maybe, or sadness. Come on, we need to talk to Martin about those land claims. Figure out which families need to be warned first. They walked back toward town together. The streets were starting to wake up, shopkeepers opening their doors, children running to school. It all looked so normal, so peaceful, like the past few days had been a fever dream. But Emma knew better. Nothing was normal anymore. Nothing was safe. At the land office, Martin had the maps spread out again. Chester Ames was there too, looking exhausted. Cole and his men arrived a few minutes later along with Sheriff McCready. All right, Martin said, pointing to the map. Based on Thompson's information, we have 5 locations. The Henderson farm, the old Pritchard place, a stretch of land owned by the Morales family, a section near Widow Creek that belongs to Samuel Chen, and finally a piece of property along the North Ridge, owned by... He paused, checking his notes. Owned by the bank, actually. Foreclosed last year. So 4 families and 1 abandoned property, Luke said. We split up, warn each family, and offer them protection. What do we tell them? McCready asked. The truth, part of it, Emma said. We tell them someone's been targeting landowners near creeks, that Wade was killed because of his land. We don't mention the gold unless we have to. Why not? Chester asked. Don't they have a right to know? Because the minute we tell them about Spanish gold, they'll either panic or start digging, Cole said bluntly. Either way, they become targets. Better to keep them safe and ignorant. I don't like lying to people, McCready said. It's not lying, it's protecting them, Emma countered. Once Thompson goes to trial, once his associates are rounded up and the threat is gone, then we tell them, but not before. McCready didn't look happy, but he nodded. Fine, how do we divide up the visits? They worked out a plan. Luke and Emma would ride to the Henderson farm. Cole and Decker would take the Pritchard place. McCready and Martin would handle the Morales family, and Samuel Chen. The abandoned property could wait no one to protect there. Within the hour, they were riding out in pairs, each group armed and watchful. Emma rode beside Luke, the morning sun warm on her face. The valley looked beautiful in the daylight, green and peaceful. She tried to imagine what the Spanish conquistadors had seen when they came through here centuries ago. Had they known this land would still be cursed by their gold hundreds of years later? The Henderson farm sat in a small hollow, surrounded by fields of wheat. Mrs. Henderson was hanging laundry when they rode up, her 3 children playing nearby. She smiled when she saw them, then the smile faded as she noticed their weapons. "Mrs. Darnell, Mr. Ramsay, what's wrong?" Luke dismounted. "Mrs. Henderson, we need to talk to you about something important. Is your husband here?" "He's in the barn. I'll fetch him," she called to her oldest son. "Tommy, go get your pa." A few minutes later, George Henderson emerged from the barn, wiping his hands on his trousers. He was a solid man, mid-40s, with kind eyes and work-worn hands. Emma had bought eggs from his wife a dozen times. "George, Martha," Emma said, "I'm sorry to come with bad news, but you need to know. Wade was killed by men looking for something on his land. We have reason to believe they might target other properties in the valley." Martha's hand flew to her mouth. "Oh, Lord, Wade's dead." "Yes, ma'am, I'm sorry." George's face hardened. "What were they looking for?" "We're not entirely sure," Luke lied smoothly. "But it seems to involve land near creeks. Your property fits that description." "You think we're in danger. We think you should be careful. Keep your rifles loaded. Don't open your door to strangers. If you see anyone suspicious, fire a warning shot and send someone to town for the sheriff." George nodded slowly. "We can do that. How long do we need to be vigilant?" "Until the man behind the attacks is dealt with," Emma said. "He's in jail now, but he might have associates. We're working with the law to make sure everyone's safe." Martha gathered her children close. "Thank you for warning us. We'll be careful." As they rode away, Emma felt the weight of the lie pressing on her chest. The Hendersons were good people. They deserved the truth. But Cole was right, telling them about the gold would only put them in more danger. "You did well," Luke said quietly as they rode. "I hate lying to them. Sometimes a kind lie is better than a cruel truth." They visited 2 more families that afternoon, delivering the same warning, getting the same worried nods. By the time the sun started to set, Emma was exhausted. They met up with the others back in town to compare notes. Everyone had delivered their warnings. The families were scared but prepared. McCready had deputies making regular patrols. For now, at least they'd done everything they could. "What about the abandoned property?" Decker asked. "The one near the North Ridge." "I'll check it out tomorrow," Luke said. "See if there's any sign someone's been poking around." "I'll go with you," Cole said. Emma started to volunteer too, but Luke shook his head. "You should rest. You haven't slept in 2 days." He was right. Emma felt like she could collapse at any moment. "Fine, but you two be careful. No killing each other while I'm not looking." Cole actually smiled at that. No promises. That night, Emma finally slept. Deep, dreamless sleep that lasted until mid-morning. When she woke, sunlight was streaming through the window. She dressed quickly and headed downstairs, expecting to find Luke and Cole already back from their scouting mission. Instead, she found Martin Pierce waiting in the boarding house parlor, his face pale. "What's wrong?" Emma asked immediately. "Thompson escaped." The words hit Emma like a physical blow. "What? Last night, somehow he got out of his cell. The lock was still secured, but the cell was empty. McCready's organizing a search party, but—" Martin's voice shook. "Thompson knows we're onto him. He knows where the families are. If he gets to them first—" Emma was already moving, running for the stable where Millie was kept. Martin followed, calling after her. "Emma, wait! You can't go alone! Then come with me!" She threw a saddle over Millie's back, her hands shaking. "The Hendersons are closest. If Thompson's going after anyone, it'll be them. Martin hesitated, then ran for his own horse. Within minutes they were riding hard, racing toward the Henderson farm. Emma's mind spun. How had Thompson escaped? Who had helped him? Had Luke and Cole run into him on the North Ridge? Were they already dead? The Henderson farm appeared in the distance. At first, everything looked normal. Then Emma saw the smoke. The barn was burning. "No," Emma breathed. She kicked Millie faster, the mare's hooves pounding the earth. Martin struggled to keep up. As they got closer, Emma saw bodies in the yard. Her heart stopped, but then one of them moved, George Henderson, crawling toward his house, blood streaming from his head. Emma dismounted before Millie had fully stopped running to George's side. "Where's Martha? Where are the children?" "Cellar," George gasped. "I got them in the cellar, but that man, he said if I didn't tell him where to dig, he'd burn them out." "Where is he now?" George pointed toward the creek. "Said he'd be back. Said I had 1 hour to decide." Emma looked at Martin. "Get George to safety. Take him and his family to town." "What are you going to do?" "What I should have done at Devil's Bend." Emma checked her revolver. 6 shots. "I'm going to end this." "Emma, you can't." "Martin, those are children in that cellar. If Thompson comes back and George won't talk, he'll kill them all." Emma's voice was steel. "I won't let that happen. Now go." Martin looked like he wanted to argue, but he nodded. He helped George to his feet and started toward the house to get Martha and the children. Emma walked toward the creek, her gun drawn. The afternoon sun beat down, turning the world gold and harsh. She moved quietly, following the sound of someone digging. She found Thompson in the same spot where Wade had found his gold 20 feet from the creek bank. He'd already dug a hole 3 feet deep. His expensive suit was filthy, his face streaked with dirt and sweat. He looked nothing like the calm, confident man they'd arrested yesterday. He looked desperate. "Thompson?" Emma called out. He spun around, a pistol appearing in his hand with surprising speed. They faced each other across 10 feet of open ground, both armed, both ready. "Mrs. Darnell," Thompson said, breathing hard, "you should have stayed in town. You should have stayed in jail." "I had help. Turns out my connections are better than your sheriff." Thompson wiped sweat from his eyes with his free hand, keeping the gun trained on Emma. "This doesn't have to end badly. There's enough gold here for both of us. We could split it, walk away, never see each other again." "You killed my husband, and you got me arrested. That makes us even, doesn't it?" Thompson's gun hand trembled slightly. "I don't want to shoot you, but I will if you force me." Emma thought about all the moments that had led her here. Wade reaching for her hand as he died. Luke standing over the bodies of the Bridger gang. Cole offering her a chance at vengeance. All the violence, all the death spiraling out from this one man's greed. "No," she said quietly. "We're not even, and we never will be." She raised her revolver. Thompson fired first. The bullet whined past Emma's ear, so close she felt the heat of it. She didn't flinch, didn't hesitate. She fired back steady and sure, the way Wade had taught her all those years ago on quiet Sunday afternoons when the world was still safe. Thompson jerked backward, the gun falling from his hand. He clutched his shoulder, blood welling between his fingers. His legs buckled and he sat down hard in the dirt. Emma walked forward, her gun still raised. Thompson stared up at her, his face twisted with pain and disbelief. "You shot me," he gasped. "Yes. You actually shot me." "You're right," Emma said, standing over him. "I should have done this at Devil's Bend." She heard horses behind her. Luke and Cole appeared, both alive, both armed. They took in the scene, Thompson bleeding in the dirt, Emma standing over him with smoking gun. "Emma," Luke said carefully, "put the gun down. He was going to kill the Henderson family, their children." "I know, but you got him. It's over." Luke dismounted, walked toward her slowly. "You did what needed doing. Now let us handle the rest." Emma looked down at Thompson, at the blood spreading across his expensive shirt. She'd shot a man, actually pulled the trigger and watched him fall. She should feel horrified, should feel sick, but all she felt was tired. She lowered the gun. Luke took it gently from her hand. Cole dismounted and stood over Thompson. "Looks like you're going back to jail, assuming you don't bleed out first." "You have to help me," Thompson gasped. "I'm injured. You can't just—" "Can't I?" Cole's voice was cold. "You killed innocent people for gold, set my brother up to die, tried to murder a family of farmers." He looked at Luke. "What do you think, Ramsay? Should we help him?" Luke was quiet for a moment, studying Thompson's ashen face. "Yeah," he said finally. "We should, because if we don't, we're no better than him." They bandaged Thompson's shoulder with strips torn from his own shirt, enough to stop the bleeding. Then they hauled him onto his horse and tied him to the saddle. Sheriff McCready met them halfway back to town, leading a search party. His face went through a dozen expressions when he saw Thompson alive and captured. "How did you never mind? I don't want to know." McCready took charge of the prisoner. "I'm putting him in the county jail this time, with armed guards. He won't escape again." "He better not," Cole said darkly, "because if he does, I won't bring him back alive." Back in town, word spread quickly. Emma Darnell had shot the man who killed her husband, had faced him down alone and brought him to justice. People looked at her differently now, with respect, with awe, with a touch of fear. Emma didn't care about any of it. She went to the boarding house, scrubbed the gunpowder residue from her hands, and sat in her room staring at nothing. Luke found her there as the sun was setting. He knocked softly, waited for her to say, "Come in." "You all right?" he asked. "I don't know," Emma said honestly. "I shot a man today. I actually shot him." "You did what you had to do. That's what everyone keeps saying, but Wade would have found another way, a better way." Her voice cracked. "He was good, Luke. Truly good. He would have been so disappointed in what I've become." Luke sat down beside her on the bed. "Or maybe he'd be proud that you survived, that you fought back when fighting was the only option left." He was quiet for a moment. "Emma, you're not the same woman you were a week ago. That woman couldn't have survived what you've been through. This new version of you, harder, sharper, she's the one who's still breathing. I miss who I was. I know, but you can't go back. None of us can." Luke took her hand gently. "Question is, where do you go from here?" Emma thought about the gold still hidden at Luke's burned ranch, thought about the life she could build somewhere else far from this valley and its ghosts. Then she thought about the Henderson children safe in their cellar because she'd been brave enough to face Thompson, about the other families sleeping peacefully tonight because she'd warned them. "I don't know," she said softly, "but maybe I don't have to decide tonight." "No," Luke agreed. "You don't." They sat together in comfortable silence as the stars came out. Outside, the town settled into evening routines. Life went on, indifferent to tragedy and triumph alike. 3 days later, federal marshals arrived from Denver. They took Thompson away in chains, along with extensive testimony from Emma, Luke, Cole, and a dozen others. The trial would happen in the spring, the head marshal said. Thompson would hang by summer. The families with gold on their properties were quietly informed. The Hendersons, the Pritchards, the Morales family, and Samuel Chen all chose to leave the gold buried. They'd seen what it cost. They wanted no part of it. Only Emma's cash remained. Luke helped her dig it up from where they'd reburied it near the ruins of his ranch. 40 pounds of Spanish doubloons and American eagles, enough wealth to last 3 lifetimes. "What will you do with it?" Luke asked as they sat beside the chest. Emma looked at the gold gleaming in the afternoon sun. She thought about Wade, digging it up, hiding it, dreaming of the life they could build. She thought about Thompson's cold calculation, turning dreams into nightmares. "I'm going to use it to rebuild," she said finally. "Not just your ranch, but Wade's house too, and maybe help some of the other families in the valley, the ones Thompson hurt or threatened." She looked at Luke. "We could do it together, if you're willing." "What about Cole? What about him? We still have business to settle." Emma met his eyes. "Then I'll talk to him again. Convince him that working together is better than dying for nothing." She smiled faintly. "I'm getting good at talking men out of killing each other." Luke laughed a real laugh that transformed his face. "Yeah, you are." Cole, when they approached him, was surprisingly reasonable. "You saved those children," he said to Emma. "That counts for something. And Ramsay here's been useful." He looked at Luke. "Our debt's still there, but maybe it doesn't have to be paid with blood. Maybe working together until we're both old and gray, that's payment enough." "You sure?" Luke asked carefully. "No, but I'm willing to try." Cole extended his hand. "Partners, at least for now." Luke shook it. "Partners." The valley healed slowly, the way all wounded things do. Luke's ranch was rebuilt first, with help from neighbors who'd heard what he did to protect Emma and the others. Wade and Emma's house took longer, but by the following spring, it stood again, fresh lumber and new glass, replacing what had been burned or broken. Emma planted a garden in Wade's memory, tomatoes and corn and the sunflowers he'd loved. She visited his grave every Sunday, told him about her week, about the valley healing, about the life she was building from the ashes. Luke was there most days, helping with heavy work, keeping her company when the nights got lonely. Something was growing between them, not quite love yet, but the seed of it, something that might bloom given time and care. One evening they sat on Emma's porch, watching the sunset paint the valley gold and purple. Luke whittled a piece of wood, his hands steady and sure. Emma shelled peas into a bowl, the simple domesticity of it soothing. "Do you ever think about leaving?" Luke asked quietly. "Starting over somewhere no one knows what happened here." "Sometimes," Emma admitted, "but then I remember that this is home. Wade and I built something here. I won't let Thompson or anyone else take that from me." "Good," Luke smiled, "because I was hoping you'd stay." "Why's that?" "Because I'm tired of being alone, tired of carrying ghosts." He set down his whittling, turned to face her. "And because you're the first person in 10 years who's made me think I might deserve a second chance at living." Emma's throat tightened. "Luke, you don't have to say anything. I just wanted you to know." But Emma did have something to say. She set down her bowl, reached over, and took his hand. His fingers were calloused, scarred, strong. "I'm not ready yet," she said softly. "But maybe someday. Is that enough?" Luke squeezed her hand gently. "That's more than enough." They sat together as the stars emerged, two broken people who'd found each other in the worst possible way and somehow impossibly were beginning to heal. The gold stayed buried on the other properties, a secret kept by those who understood its true cost. Emma's share funded schools and wells and improvements that helped the whole valley. People stopped calling her the widow, started calling her by her name again. Thompson hanged in August on a clear morning with birds singing. Emma didn't attend. She had better things to do, living her life honoring Wade's memory, not with vengeance, but with the kind of quiet strength he'd always admired in her. Cole Bridger surprised everyone by staying in the valley. He and Luke became unlikely friends, working together to protect homesteaders from the predators who still occasionally came looking for easy prey. The debt between them faded slowly, replaced by mutual respect and something approaching brotherhood. Years later, when Emma's hair had started to silver and Luke's beard had gone gray, they'd sit on that same porch and remember the terror, the violence, the grief, but also the courage, the healing, the unexpected grace of second chances. "Do you think Wade would forgive me?" Emma asked one evening, "for moving on, for being happy again?" Luke was quiet for a moment, then smiled. "I think Wade would be glad you survived, that you didn't let what happened break you, that you chose to live instead of just existing." And Emma, looking out over the valley she'd fought so hard to protect, the home she'd rebuilt from ashes, the life she'd carved from tragedy, knew he was right. The fire that had destroyed her had also forged her into something stronger, something unbreakable. And what had hurt her, what had nearly killed her, had become the foundation of everything she'd built since. She was no longer the frightened woman who'd run through the darkness, clutching a wooden crate. She was Emma Darnell, who'd faced down killers and lived, who'd chosen courage over comfort, who'd learned that sometimes love means letting go of who you were to become who you need to be. And in the end, that was enough.